All right, it's my pleasure to introduce John Bagger. John got his bachelor's degree in math and physics from Dartmouth, followed by a master's from Cambridge, his PhD from Princeton, and after a postdoctoral work at SLAC and the Institute for Advanced Study at Princeton, he joined Harvard before moving up the street to Johns Hopkins, where he was appointed the Krieger Eisenhower Professor of Physics and Astronomy, and for a while he was department chair and then acting provost. And from there he went to Triumph Laboratory in Canada, was director there, and then came back in 2021 to be the CEO of our APS. John's research is in particle physics, sort of phenomenology theory and experiment, and he's written a book that some people have certainly had on supersymmetry and gravity with Julius West. He was a fellow of the American Physical Society and of the AAAS. So thank you, John, for coming. And why should we care?
Well, thank you, Jordan, and thank you for inviting me. It's good to see you here today. As Jordan says, I've been around Maryland a long time. In fact, I've been connected in some ways to your department even longer because Jim Gates and I wrote the first 2 books on supersymmetry, and we've been friends ever since. So what I'm going to talk about at the 125th anniversary of the American Physical Society is what is it, and try to give you a sense of where it's going, and in fact, why you should care. So let me start by talking about what it is. If you look officially, you see it's a 501c3 nonprofit corporation, which is devoted to the advancement of physics. What does that mean? Well, first of all, it's an organization that it's essentially run by its 50,000 members, and it really does represent your interests, both in Washington and beyond. But actually, I think for people in this room, you should think of APS as a community. And I think it's a community in which you have a home. And so I'd like to talk about that a little later. So APS was launched in 1899 when 36 physicists gathered at Fairweather Hall in Columbia University to form a physics society. That was a time when physics in the United States was really trying to prove that there was some there. It was a very young field at that point. And so the American physicists started to band together. Its original mission was to advance and diffuse the knowledge of physics. In that room, curiously, actually quite interestingly, there were two women physicists out of the 36. Unfortunately, we haven't made as much progress since then as we should have. The sole activity of APS in those days was to hold scientific meetings. It had a budget of about $300 and it didn't have any employees. Its first president was Henry Rowland from Johns Hopkins up the road, who said, well, to encourage the growth of any science, the best thing we can do is to meet together in its interest, to discuss its problems, to criticize each other's work, and best of all, provide means by which the better portion of it may be known to the world. And you know, the APS has stood true to that mission for quite a while. But nowadays, APS has certainly grown quite a bit. There's about 50,000 members, 50,000 members from 115 countries. Still only 20% are women. It's about an $80 million business, 300 employees. And frankly, what I hope I'll show you during this talk is it has a bold and expansive mission that is designed to serve really an increasingly diverse physics community. Your Jim Gates was our president in 2021. That was my first year as CEO, and it was great to work with him as I came on board. And our president is Young-Ki Kim from the University of Chicago, again, a particle physicist who I've known for many years. APS's vision. This is what we're working towards. APS envisions a world inspired, enriched, and sustained by a thriving physics enterprise. Basically, talks about the connection between APS and the world. And how are we doing that? It's through our mission. We advance physics. APS advances physics by fostering a vibrant, inclusive, and global community dedicated to science and society. Vibrant because physics is still incredibly alive as a field, inclusive because we want everybody to be participating, and global because it certainly is a global enterprise. Why? Well, because we're dedicated to science, but also to society. Now, that vision and mission are new, refreshed for the 125th anniversary. They were produced by this committee of members that had really worked over much of this past year. As you can see, there's all sorts of people on that committee from various parts of the country, various backgrounds. And really, I'm very proud of the work they did really together. And then that mission and vision were in fact endorsed by our board. So what is APS? I would say APS is an organization with a compelling mission to advance physics by fostering a vibrant, inclusive, and global community dedicated to science and society. So where is it going? Told you what it is. Well, we've spent the last year also refreshing the strategic framework. You can get it on the web. There's lots of little words here. You don't have to read it. But it has 4 big pieces, 4 strategies that I'm going to talk through today, try to present to you what APS is doing now. The first is we're sustainably adapting to a changing publications landscape. I'll tell you what that means. Second strategy for the future is to convene and connect the global physics community. Again, I will tell you more. To promote and elevate our core values, incredibly important if we want to build an inclusive and welcoming society. And finally, if we're going to actually get any of this done, we need to embrace organizational effectiveness too. So let me start by talking a little bit about what APS is doing to adapt to the changing publications landscape. So just to set the stage, you should know that we publish 17 peer-reviewed journals, including 3 journals that are the most impactful in their category in physics. The Top Physics Letters Journal, Physical Review Letters. The Top Physics Open Access Journal, called PRX. And the Top Physics Review Journal, the Reviews of Modern Physics. All told, we publish about 20,000 articles a year, downloaded about 31 million times a year, so the articles are used. But a critical point is all the revenues from the publishing operation are used to support the community, and our mission. So the journals are expanding, huge pressure from the world of open access to really to grow the journal portfolio. And where are we going to grow? Well, the place to grow is in areas with fields that are moving quickly, that are expanding, and also into fields that are adjacent to physics, because so many of you, frankly, are interested in more than physics. And so we definitely want to be talking about things that are relevant to a larger community. And so 3 new journals, for example, are PRX Quantum, PRX Energy, and PRX Life. And so there'll be more coming as well soon. And so again, this expansion of the portfolio is really connected to a broad and expansive view of what physics is, not something just off in its own silo. They said the environment around us is changing. Our journals are global. As you can see from this chart, the dark blue is bigger than the green. We have more papers from China than we do from the United States at this point. 37% of our submissions are coming from China, and over half of the papers with a US author have a non-US co-author. And so the field of physics is completely international, completely global, which is one thing that APS then has to react to and adapt to and really become a global physics society. Furthermore, Europe and the United States are moving away from subscriptions towards models where the author pays to publish. And that is a tremendous change in the business, because in the past, right, the library would just pay all the subscriptions and you'd be done with it. But now researchers have to pay. And this is being mandated by the US government and also by governments in Europe, but not in China, for example. And so we at APS have to be quite flexible with a variety of offerings to meet our customers where they are. And finally, there's certainly AI, other tools are making it easier than ever to generate fraudulent papers. We have to make sure that we have integrity in the research record. That's really the job of peer review, not to just reject papers willy-nilly, but to make sure what you publish is contributing to the advancement of science. And so because of some of this, all the scandals and so forth, trust in science is actually eroding. And it's really more important than ever that we have our journals be the gold standard for research integrity. And we really have the economics are changing as well. Because if you move from a system where the libraries pay for subscriptions to ones where the authors are paying, it changes the incentives completely. Because if you're trying to make a lot of money in publishing, that's not our goal, but the commercial publishers, that is their goal. You want to publish everything, because then you can collect a fee from every article that you're publishing, whether it's good or bad. And so there's really a huge shift from quality of publications to volume in the name of open access. And this endangers the integrity of the research record. As I said, there's a cost shift from libraries to researchers. For us, it really disrupts our business model, because instead of interacting with libraries, a finite number of libraries, we have interacting with 20,000 authors trying to say, if you want to publish with us, it's going to cost you $2,000. Anyway, this is a serious, serious business. I can tell you that in the face of these challenges, these economic imperatives, we are committed to research integrity and to supporting the physics community. So, in fact, we've joined with the Institute of Physics in the UK and AIP in the US to form an organization called Purpose-Led Publishing, which really is explaining the value of nonprofit science publications. And the Purpose-Led Publishing Coalition has come together to pledge that they will always invest 100% of their funds back into science, put research integrity ahead of profit, publish only content that genuinely adds to the scientific knowledge, admit errors and set them right, and ensure the terms are reasonable. Furthermore, the three publishers are pledging that they will never relinquish their non-for-profit status or have shareholders who put their profit over purpose. And this is a bold stance, because the economic pressures in the industry are really driving the opposite direction. But the physics publishers have put the stake in the ground and are joining together to make a stand. Now, another problem, of course, is that when it goes to a situation where the author is paying, what do you do about the authors who can't pay? What do you do about the authors who aren't funded? What do you do about junior faculty who haven't yet got their grants? What do you do about people from the developing world where they don't have money to publish? So we have joined the consortium Research for Life. It's a consortium of 200 publishers that really are committed to ensuring access to publication from researchers across the developing world. And we're preparing a fundraising campaign which will pay for researchers who have no grant support. So again, we're trying to overcome the inequities that are being induced by open access. So open access sounds great, right? You know, research is free, make it, the taxpayers paid for the research. Everybody should be able to read it. But, it comes at a cost, and it's inducing new inequities into the system that we have to be prepared to combat. And so we are committed to doing that. But it's a complicated landscape. And that's what I meant by sustainably adapt to the changing publication landscape. But the bottom line for this piece of the talk is it matters where you publish. So if you're going to go send off that paper to Nature, be my guest. But know that Nature is preparing an IPO right now, right? Springer Nature. So, people are making a killing off of those fees that you're sending them. So think about that. So the second strategy for the future of APS is to convene and connect the global physics community. Well, we do that in a bunch of ways. And so let me just talk about some. First, of course, we have meetings. We have all sorts of scientific meetings. There's basically a scientific meeting every month. They are arranged by field and by region and by interest, and really over the course of the year, about 25,000 people attend one of our meetings. Now, all of our meetings have a virtual component because now we wanted to say, well, we had this pandemic, what have we learned? One thing we've learned is how to communicate at a distance, virtually. Now, of course, people want to get together, but sometimes people can't get together. They don't have the funding. They happen to be sick at that time. They don't have the care, the elder care, the child care, right? And they want to be able to attend remotely. So we make that option available. We also now have tiered pricing to our meetings. And so again, if you're from the third world, according to the economic status of your country, the price is different. So, we're trying different things, trying to learn from what we've learned from the pandemic, learn from the Research from Life Consortium, for example. In 2025, actually, our March and April meeting are together. They are together in Anaheim. This is be called Global Physics Summit or something by the time the marketers get done. But it's really going to be quite a show. I think it's going to have, it's an experiment. There's going to be 4 distinct campuses that are all across, within walking distance of each other, very close to each other. Essentially, one from hard matter, one from soft matter, one on quantum information, and one that's a sort of nuclear particle and astrophysics, quarks to the cosmos. They're going to be in different areas so that people can interact with their friends and be, in their communities, but close enough that there's a lot of shared opportunities as well. And so lots and lots of joint sessions. And so frankly, there are going to be 15,000 attendees there from over 80 countries. And now this is like nuts, right? I'm a particle physicist. We like small groups, and so you get together with 100 of your friends, or maybe 500 or something. And when I used to think this was crazy, but having gone to these events the last couple of years, there's something to it, because you can really see the breadth of physics, the power of physics, the expanse of physics. You can drop in other fields and hear talks and things that aren't related to your work. In fact, to me, that's I sort of know what's going on in my field. So to me, actually, what's great about a meeting like this is being able to go and experience what other people are doing.
Close to Disneyland.
This is just right across the way from Disneyland to boot. So exactly. So I think it'll be fun. Lots of cross-disciplinary sessions. There's a session where the Nobel Prize winners will be there. Session sponsored by the Kavli Foundation, and Nicole Halpern is one of the Kavli speakers from Maryland, right? She'll be there. Sessions in physics education research, physics and society, prize award ceremonies, affinity group meetings, and so forth. So it should be really quite a happening. But as I said, we're also thinking of virtual sessions and remote sessions. And so not only will people be coming to Anaheim, but we also will be having satellite sessions around the world, where certain sessions from Anaheim will be broadcast out. People will gather locally, have their own physics meeting, have their own sessions where they're talking to each other, watch some of the sessions from the US-based meeting, but also broadcast some of their sessions back into the global section. And this has been pioneered in the last few years, and they've had successful pioneers in Brazil, Cameroon, Hong Kong, India, Jordan, Morocco, Nepal, Pakistan, Rwanda, Philippines, South Africa, where these people in these countries are happy to be joining the global celebration of physics. And I must have an imperialist mindset or something, because I didn't a colonialist mindset. Because when these were first proposed, I thought, well, isn't it nice that we're broadcasting these sessions out to the community? It really didn't cross my mind that their sessions would be broadcast back as well. And so it does form sort of a web of physics meetings happening simultaneously. And it's really quite remarkable. And I'm really happy that we're doing this. And so here's some pictures of the groups in Hong Kong, Morocco, Nepal, and Cameroon last year. And hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in these countries are attending our meetings. Now, of course, besides the scientific meetings, there are also meetings of all sorts. This is the what used to be called the Conferences for Undergraduate Women in Physics. It's now been changed to the Conference for Undergraduate Women and Gender Minorities in Physics. There are regional conferences. They're held annually. Next year, it's going to be in 15 sites around the country. The idea is that people can drive to it, right? You don't have to, it doesn't cost a lot of money to get to it. And also in Canada, something like 2,000 attendees will be there. The science talks, posters, careers, graduate schools, networking, so forth, sponsored by both DOE and NSF. And so the challenge, one of my challenges I'm leaving with you is why don't you host one here in 2026?
We're submitting a proposal, so we're ahead.
All right, good, excellent, thank you, I'll check. Also the Faculty Teaching Institute, right? So many people come from their postdoc, they don't know a damn thing about teaching and they're thrown into a classroom. Faculty Teaching Institutes run by AAPT, the physics teachers, the AAS, the astronomers, and APS sponsored by NSF. Again, it's a biennial conference for faculty who really want to develop their skills in teaching. Don't have to be a first-year teacher. Anybody is welcome. It's going to be it's in Washington. It's coming up in November. Applications closed last week. But if you really want to do it, let me know and I'll see if I can sneak you in. There's an annual leadership meeting that we have in Washington in January, which involves congressional visits, a presidential address, some sort of keynote address, prizes, leadership training. So if you want to participate in that, you got to become an APS leader. So start somewhere, dig in, jump in, get going, and you'll have your opportunity. So besides holding meetings and events, we also try to do activities to pull the world community together. And so I'm sure you've heard that last June, the United Nations declared 2025 the International Year of Quantum Science and Technology because Heisenberg's paper came out in the summer of 1925, so it's the 100th anniversary of quantum mechanics. So APS really started to lead an effort in collaboration with something like 75 partners from around the world to have the United Nations declare this year. It's really been quite an education for me how this is done. Mexico got it endorsed by UNESCO, but then they handed it off to Ghana, who made the push at the General Assembly, but it happened. And so we're really quite happy about this because really, when I think of quantum, everybody wants to say they're quantum these days, but physics owns quantum, don't we? I think so. Anyway, so there'll be lots of opportunities for local, national, international activities. So again, think about what you want to be doing here for 2025 for the International Year, especially with the JQI. Someone will probably come looking for money from them as well. Anyway, Yanni Chembo from chemistry and Bill Phillips from your department and NIST really helped push this over the line by appearing in front of the committees at the General Assembly as well. So great cooperation with this department, so thank you for that. Another example of APS playing a catalyzing role. People, and that there's a lot of tension, a lot of angst about research security. How do you do your research in a way where you keep integrity, you don't give the products away unless you know who you're giving them to, government's increasingly interested in this. And so APS pulled together physics societies from around the world to create a statement on the principles of research security. And this statement, which you can find on our website, is based really on 3 principles. Integrity, tell the truth. Transparency, don't hide what you're doing. And reciprocity, you give and receive equally. integrity, transparency, reciprocity. And it's been endorsed, frankly, by 25 physics societies around the world. If you look at this list, it's sort of an interesting list. I mean, they're the usual suspects, you know, the US and Canada and places like that. But Uzbekistan, India, Japan, China endorsed it. And so the State Department is actually very happy that the world physics community has set down some principles for the way we expect to behave when we're interacting with each other across borders. So the bottom line, APS is seeking to serve as a welcoming global hub to convene and connect the global physics community. So I'd like to just talk for a little bit about our core values. So that same committee that I showed you before, the committee that refreshed the vision and the mission of APS, also took a look at our core values. What does this mean? Core values, our mission and the vision, basically, our mission and our vision describe our aspirations and our activities, but the core values describe how we should be working with each other. Yes, within APS, but frankly, across the physics community. And so again, they've been developed after extensive consultation with the members, the council, our board, and I must say every word was discussed and debated and finally adopted by our board. And so here they are, the core values. First one, the scientific method. This is kind of a weird core value, but actually it turns out to be a very useful one. We rely on scientific methods as the foundation for physics and its application. We recognize the evolution of scientific inquiry. Trust, integrity, and ethical conduct. We act honestly and ethically to ensure integrity in physics and across our community. Equity, diversity, and respect. We champion a culture of mutual respect, inclusion, access, and belonging. We embrace diversity in physics. Collaboration. We engage in open and respectful exchange to accelerate scientific discoveries and solve global challenges. Partnerships and collaborations make us stronger. Education and learning. We promote education that nurtures curiosity, sparks innovation, and supports lifelong learning and discovery, and speaking out. We listen, we promote our core values, and speak out on issues where scientific evidence or expertise can inform the public or benefit society. So again, scientific method, trust, integrity, and ethical conduct, equity, diversity, and respect, collaboration, education and learning, and speaking out. So ethics. Ethics is a topic really of immense importance to science, for trust in science, for respect for each other. Ethics. It covers really an enormous range from research integrity, frankly, to personal safety at our meetings. So our board is currently revising our code of conduct, our ethics guidelines, our investigative procedures, really under the leadership of Patience Nelson, who is our new head of ethics, and she's her JD from Howard University, and she's leading the charge. And we will soon be developing education modules. We have already processes to screen leaders and prize winners, and frankly, procedures to revoke honors and membership for people who do not behave ethically. Again, absolutely critical to the future of physics. Trust and integrity is a core value. So 96% of APS members are concerned about misinformation, and 83% believe APS should be doing something about it. So we actually have something called the Science Trust Project, which was seeded by the AIP and is now being supported by the Kavli Foundation, which is really training physicists with the communication skills they need to communicate, not just to lecture, but to communicate, right? To give people the skills to talk to their neighbors with humility, with curiosity, with empathy, oh yeah, and also with facts. Basically moves people from the idea of correction to connection through webinars, workshops, coffee hours, and so forth. So if you're interested in that, give it a try, reach out, join the group. We have a huge number of programs actually in support of our efforts to increase equity, diversity, and respect across our community. So really, these programs are all seeking to support a culture of inclusion and belonging in physics for everybody. For example, there's the National Mentoring Community that connects mentors and mentees in institutions across the country. Suppose you're in some institution here and you're like a black student and there's no black faculty that you would like to connect to. We can find you somebody who can be your mentor. Suppose you're somebody who's a first-generation college person at this university and you need somebody to connect to. We can facilitate those connections. So right now we have 140 mentees being mentored by 110 mentors at 110 institutions. And so again, this is a huge and important network for providing support to people who need it. So if you have the time, the ability, the interest, please volunteer. APS IDEA empowers departments and labs and organizations to create cultural change, to make their departments welcoming to all people. And really, these groups are placed in groups of 5 or something like that, where they exchange what they're doing. They help develop plans, action plans with each other. Right now, we have 65 institutions in the US and Canada that are involved. There are about 20 teams from institutions similar to yours, so you might consider joining, because we could certainly benefit from the experience that you've had in making your department more welcoming. This is supported by, again, initially was supported by AIP, but is now being supported by Burroughs Wellcome and the Sloan Foundation. We also are trying to give information out to the community. And so we've actually hosted recently some webinars on anti-DEI legislation that is hosted jointly with the physics teachers and the Society of Black Physicists. We had 2 webinars. One was on the national level, and one was basically trying to talk a little bit about what's going on in Florida. Again, over 300 attendees, including leadership from other societies, and frankly, people from agencies in Washington were attending those seminars as well. Told you we want to build a thriving physics community, and the basis of that is thriving physics departments. And so again, we are trying to promote effective physics teaching and effective physics department practices grounded in research and practice. So we have, for example, the effective practices for physics programs that has the unfortunate name EP3. I've been trying to get it rebranded, but it's a web resource with lots of things for physics departments. Not only how to teach, how to train teachers, how to write a strategic plan, how to interact with your dean. Again, this has been written by and for the physics community. Lots of information there, and frankly also the careers programs really recognizes that most students in physics don't wind up in faculty jobs, they wind up doing something useful. And so this helps people navigate their career pathway. So again, check out those resources. Core value is collaboration. I talked about purpose-led publishing, where these publishers compete with each other ruthlessly, but they understand that they're embedded in a bigger world, in particular of commercial publishing, and so they're stronger standing together than standing apart. Finally, one of the final core value was speaking out. And well, we do speak out. In the 118th Congress, there were over 10,000 actions of advocacy by APS members. That means letters, visits, calls, meetings, again, to Congress, to OSTP, agencies, social media posts, as I said, emails, calls, op-eds. And so these are really a hugely important part of the APS mission. And frankly, if I was asking myself, why was I a member of APS before I took this job, I would say that this is the reason why. Because APS is the voice of physics in Washington. So if you'd like to help, contact Charlotte and she'll connect you up. So what are the priorities? The priorities are determined, again, not by me, but by a group, a committee of APS members. And for 2024, the legislative priorities were to address climate change through monitoring of methane emissions. And in fact, legislation has passed both houses of Congress based on APS's studies of the importance of methane towards climate change. Of course, we advocate investing in R&D. We advocate for U.S. Competitiveness through quantum technologies, the Quantum Acts, for example. We've been pushing to ensure competitive compensation for graduate students and postdocs to make sure the money is available in the budgets to pay the graduate students and postdocs for what they're worth, and also supporting the importance of international students to the physics enterprise. We have a panel on public affairs that writes reports that are areas where physics expertise is particularly critical. These reports over the years have covered a wide range of topics, from things like critical elements for emerging technologies, to methane emissions, to ballistic missile defense, and there's new ones coming out on atmospheric carbon dioxide removal. Again, basically pointing out how hard that is to use for mitigating climate change. There's statements that the APS makes as well. Again, they go through a huge process, which are carefully vetted by our panel on public affairs and our membership. The issue of statements, of course, has become incredibly controversial, and APS is now sort of recalibrating, and that we will speak out where physics is involved, but we will not be speaking out when it doesn't involve physics, which I think is the right place to land. So the bottom line on our core values. These core values guide our work, and they set expectations for building a welcoming and inclusive physics culture. Now, I was going to talk a couple of things, not much. You don't really care about how our organization works. That's my job, but I'll just point a couple of them. Yeah, so we really have to become more nimble if we're going to adapt to this fast-changing world. So this includes things like open access publishing, the virtual meetings, the satellite meetings, new membership models. Nobody these days plunks $200 down and joins an organization, right? Everybody connects through apps and things like that. The whole business model of what it means to be a scientific society needs to be thought through again, and is being thought through. And frankly, we've also moved to completely remote operations. There's no reason for us to actually get together in offices unless we need to. But this has allowed us to hire people all over the country. Now we have employees, frankly, in each state. So APS is changing, and it's really upping its game. And part of that meant not sitting on real estate that we aren't using. So we sold our publishing building on Long Island and have renting a much smaller place for the publishing. And we've also sold the facility in College Park here. We sold it to the University of Maryland. So if you want to go over, it's now called the Anacostia building. We're still located on the 5th floor, but we are no longer really based here in College Park. But because of that, we took some of the proceeds and expanded our presence in Washington. There's a new space near Metro Center, 555 12th Street. It's shared with the AIP and the AAPT, the physics teachers. It's open for members to come and park when they're in Washington. It's also where we have all of our meetings. It's really a lovely space, and if you join, and you're welcome to use it. So the bottom line is APS is changing, but we're never going to lose strength of our community, because frankly, the community is our strength. So again, 4 strategies: adapting to the publications landscape, convening and connecting, core values, and organizational effectiveness. So why should you care? Well, as I said, it's officially a 501c3, blah, blah, blah. But I think really that the point of the APS is it's a community. At the end, I think that's why people join. Most people in APS have a real home. They have a particular place they feel they belong. We have 50 units, divisions, topical groups, forums, and sections. We have divisions that are organized by field of physics. A lot of people in this department have been leaders in one or more of these groups. We have topical groups, which are for more specialized interests. For example, you see data science there, you see medical physics, you see physics education research, physics of climate. Again, topical groups are a great way into APS. We have forums, which are organized really for interests, right? Graduate student affairs, early career scientists, diversity and inclusion. These are groups of members that are gathered together around a shared interest, a non-scientific interest. And finally, we have sections, which are geographically arranged. And of course, you're in the Mid-Atlantic section, and so host a meeting. So, frankly, in conclusion, I believe at least that APS matters. I hope that's clear, and that frankly, we need you. APS depends on its members to accomplish its mission. So last year, something like 3,000 APS volunteers worked something like 66,000 hours advancing our profession. Don't just go for a ride, join them. 26,000 referees wrote 95,000 referee reports for the journals, right? This is a huge amount of engagement from people like you. So please, if you are a volunteer, a referee, a member, thank you. And if you're not a member, please consider joining. You have a home in one of those divisions, I guarantee you, right? We have 50, pick one. And really become part of this global community, because frankly, we need each and every one of you to promote and support our field. So, why did I take this job? It's a headache. Well, I took this job to try to make a difference. But I need help. So, please, thank you.